Welcome to NTN Nightly. I am Janelle Norville. This edition's top stories. The Government of Saint Lucia is taking the business of building resilience seriously. The IMF plans to assist members with the disbursement of the Special Asset Reserve amounting to some $650 billion. And French counterparts continue to support Saint Lucia in providing quality healthcare to citizens. The Government of Saint Lucia on Friday announced a $10 million assistance package to assist victims of Hurricane Elsa. Saint Lucia's agriculture sector received the hardest hit, with banana and plantain farmers sustaining heavy losses. Crop loss following damage assessments is estimated at some $34 million. Some 500 homes were damaged, with 50 being completely destroyed, while the CDC buildings in Castries were also impacted. Prime Minister the Honorable Alan Chasney, noting the damage sustained the island over, indicated that the government is taking the business of building resiliently seriously.
When we came into government, there was $67 million US still left in that program. We've committed all of those funds, and so if you go around the communities, you'll see the amount of drains that have been built to help with that situation. We have tripled the amount of monies that we've been spending on desilting. We went from $1.5 million to just under $4.5 million an annual basis. The Minister of Agriculture has indicated that some of the longer term issues are really on coastal erosion, and we're attempting to do that. So the desilting of river mouths, taking channels of water, so instead of hitting straight onto the ocean, that we're taking sides. So if you look at the Dennery village as an example, is a very good example of retraining the river, the work that's taken place in the cul-de-sac area in terms of raising the height of the bridge. The new schools that we're building all have been built to withstand up to Hurricane 5 hurricanes. 14 healthcare centers have been made to hurricane proof, meaning that they have their own independent generators, they have their own water supplies, special refrigeration. So again, if a community is cut off, that community, that healthcare center can act independently to the health system that we have.
The Prime Minister explained that focus will also be placed on a tree cropping program with a view of building resilience in the agriculture sector. Honorable Chasney, speaking to the island's vulnerability to hurricanes, noted that while a lot of work has gone into building resilience against flooding, there is much work to be done as it relates to hurricane-forced winds.
The idea of getting persons to diversify their land and not just have bananas, but also have other forms of vegetation, and including in that selection tree crops. So whether it be cocoa trees, whether it be mango trees, whether it be avocado trees, because as he indicated, we're seeing early signs that is working. Now, this was a Hurricane 1, so we had winds up to 75 miles an hour. I'm not so sure that tree cropping would be that resilient past Hurricane 2 or Hurricane 3. So we've been lucky, if we will all notice, that the hurricanes that we've had in the last 10 years have not been as strong as wind as this one. Most of the time, it has been from rain. And that's really been the biggest focus. The West Coast Road, as an example, is really being built with resilience in mind.
Prime Minister of Saint Lucia, the Honorable Alan Chasney. Over 400 visitors are set to grace the shores of Saint Lucia come Tuesday, 13th of July, 2021, when Celebrity Summit and Windstar Breeze will both at Port Castries and Port Rodney respectively. These cruise calls are fresh off the heels of the reintroduction of the cruise sector to Saint Lucia on June 29. This will augur well for continued operations as more cruise-dependent income earners are set to benefit, and key tourism sites and attractions have opened to the public as of July 6, giving visitors increased options for adventure. In an effort to ensure the seamless reintroduction of cruise tourism to Saint Lucia, the Saint Lucia Tourism Authority (SLTA) continues to engage with all cruise lines on calls to be realized in the near future. Port health authorities will continue to screen visitors at all ports of entry, making certain that white wristbands are issued to stay-over visitors, and all fully vaccinated cruise visitors are issued a wristband on arrival. Vaccinated adults accompanying unvaccinated minors as well as all unvaccinated visitors who wish to disembark the vessels will be accommodated within a bubble. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, is sharing its assessment of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS's economy in light of challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The IMF explained that while the global growth forecast is projected at 6% for 2021 and 4% for 2022, poor and middle-income countries in the region are falling behind. This is due to limited policy space in these countries and the uneven distribution of vaccines. Nigel Chalk is the Deputy Director of the IMF Western Hemisphere Department.
Our growth forecast for the tourism-dependent Caribbean countries is only 1.4% in 2021, far below the global levels. And then we'll pick up to 5% in 2022. Evidently, this does not reverse the calamitous contraction of last year. And many countries will not see their economies return to the pre-pandemic level until 2024 or beyond, leaving them falling behind further the richer countries. Of course, there's an unusual degree of uncertainty about these forecasts. On the one hand, pent-up demand for international travel could surge later this year and be much stronger than we currently project. However, it could also be that slower than expected vaccine rollout would delay recovery and cause more persistent economic scarring. There's a good chance that the pandemic's economic shadow will be felt in the region long after the public health emergency has waned.
Chalk suggested key policies to overcome the current economic challenges and build future economic resilience.
There's a need to maintain fiscal support in the near term and shift resources to critical COVID-related spending. There's a need to strengthen regional and national fiscal frameworks to safeguard the credibility of the regional debt anchor. Financial institutions' capacity to weather the near-term pandemic and prepare it should be strengthened, and comprehensive crisis management plans should be put in place in case things go awry. And international reserves need to be kept at a robust level.
The International Monetary Fund has pledged assistance to its members in overcoming the economic challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. It plans to disburse the Special Asset Reserve SDR of $650 billion to its members, including the OECS region.
As you may know, the IMF is working on a potential SDR allocation of $650 billion to its members. Once approved, that allocation will benefit all IMF members by boosting their reserves, and it will do so without adding to debt burdens. This would mean around $127 million in new resources for the OECS region alone. Members that are liquidity constrained will be able to use those resources to smooth out their post-pandemic realignment of policies. But they can also provide a buffer to use for vaccines today or for future crisis response or to build reserves. While the allocations will be in line with each member's quota shares at the IMF, we're encouraging those countries with strong external positions to reallocate part of their holdings on a voluntary basis to the benefit of other vulnerable countries, including in the region.
Nigel Chalk, Deputy Director of the IMF Western Hemisphere Department, speaking there at the OECS Assembly's 5th sitting. Meantime, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, is being encouraged to support an international treaty proposal for pandemic preparedness and response by the World Health Organization, WHO. This proposed treaty is aimed at protecting the world from future pandemics, applying lessons learned from COVID-19 to build a more robust global health architecture through enhanced international cooperation. In an address to the OECS during its 5th Assembly sitting in June, WHO's Director General Dr. Tedros underscored the need for global multilateral cooperation to address current and future health threats.
The pandemic has shown us that we can only respond to shared threats with shared solutions. There is now an emerging consensus for the idea of an international treaty on pandemic preparedness and response, to provide the solid foundation for closer international collaboration to share the data, information, resources, technology, and tools that every nation needs to keep its people safe.
Dr. Tedros beseeched the region's leaders to get on board with this effort to advance global health security.
As you know, at last month's World Health Assembly, member states agreed to hold a special session of the Assembly this November to discuss the idea of a treaty. We seek the support of OECS member states for this idea, and we welcome your active participation in its development.
The call for an international pandemic treaty was first tabled at the end of March, receiving support from 25 governments and international groups, including the WHO, in attendance. The Special World Health Assembly scheduled for November will be held to gain the commitment of more country leaders. Saint Lucia continues to receive support from its French counterparts to assist health authorities in providing quality health care to the citizens. More in this report from Fernel Neptune.
The Ministry of Health recently received a donation of biomedical resuscitation equipment from the University Hospital of Martinique to aid in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Deputy Head of Mission from the Embassy of France, Marc Matilio, says this donation demonstrates the continuation of strong medical cooperation between Saint Lucia and the University Hospital of Martinique.
I would like to express on behalf of the Embassy of France in Saint Lucia my pleasure to note the dynamism of this medical cooperation between France and Saint Lucia, a cooperation which benefits above all the Saint Lucian people. Let us continue to stay safe. The pandemic is not over.
Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Glensford Joseph, expressed gratitude to the University Hospital of Martinique for the donation and contribution to the medical sector and people of Saint Lucia.
Personnel from the University Hospital, they have been providing training, providing assessment of persons who have been impacted with COVID, and also building capacity in terms of our biomedical equipment to support the management of COVID-19 patients. This generous donation of medical equipment is just another in a series of interventions where Martinique has supported Saint Lucia in its fight against all medical issues.
Director of International Relations at the University Hospital of Martinique, Christian Bourgeois-Genevier, says her organization is very pleased to provide this gift and looks forward to working with the staff at the Victoria Hospital to ensure proper care of patients.
Today is the last, I should say, donation that will be useful to help patients, to give patient oxygenation and to prevent very acute invasive cares of resuscitation. So it's very, we are very happy to help the staff, the medical staff of VH, because we know that with the epidemic right now, the battle is still going on.
The biomedical equipment, valued at approximately 200,000 EC dollars, included oxygenators, heating humidifiers, and ultrasound nebulizers. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Fernel Neptune.
The public is hereby notified that in keeping with changes in international oil prices and government's application of the modified market pass-through petroleum pricing mechanism, the retail price of LPG 100-pound cylinder has changed. The retail price of gasoline, diesel, kerosene, LPG 20 and 22-pound cylinders remains unchanged. The price changes take effect from Monday, July 12, 2021. Gasoline remains unchanged at $13.95 per gallon. Kerosene remains unchanged at $7 per gallon. Diesel remains unchanged at $13.95 per gallon. The 20-pound cylinder remains unchanged at $31.65 per cylinder. The 22-pound cylinder remains unchanged at $34.81 per cylinder. The 100-pound cylinder increased from $211.31 to $216.45 per cylinder. The public is informed that the next adjustment of the retail price of fuel products will be on Monday, August 2, 2021. This is NTN Nightly. Up next, Primus Hutchinson with the NTN Nouvelle Creole.
COVID-19 is a new pandemic disease as declared by the World Health Organization. It is transmitted directly by respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or indirectly through rubbing the face with contaminated hands. There is still no specific treatment or vaccine against COVID-19, and as such, the farming community should adhere to some special recommendations. Ensure that farm clothing and gear is clean. Wash hands thoroughly before harvesting crops. Use face masks and head ties whilst harvesting, cleaning, and packaging crops. Use all safety precautions when transporting crops to the markets and depots, such as handling crates and crops with only clean hands and covering sneezes and coughs with a tissue or the inner arm to ensure body fluids or droplets don't get on produce, and washing hands or using hand sanitizer after using the tissue. More than ever before, your important role as gatekeepers of St. Lucia's nutritional, health and food security should be taken seriously. When you exercise these precautions, you not only safeguard your health, but also continue to allow all St. Lucians access to freshly grown fruits, vegetables and other local crops. Remember, it is our responsibility to ensure our nation eats fresh, St. Lucia's best.
Welcome back. We join Primus Hutchinson for the NTN Nouvelle au Créole.
Merci autant, Janelle. Monsieur, Madame, département qui est responsabilité pour information à Government of Saint Lucia, ça c'est GIS, à ce puis Télévision Nationale pays NTN, qui a présenté une nouvelle en créole, présenté au Primus Hutchinson. La Banque Saint Lucia a fait plus facile pour même Saint Lucia Workers Credit Union trouver service à institution ça ça venu possible par un 4 yo kay servi pour trouver l'argent qui on est sauvé à Credit Union. Assistant directeur général pour la banque celle-ci, Lendell Arnold déclaré que les management banque là ouais manière les pratiques avec même diverses institutions finance boutiques et magasins cadeau bout en ligne qui très long avec délai en bas soleil qui très chaud pour recevoir service yo décidé pour développer une façon pour soulager ces pratiques ça là avec ces mêmes là pour faire comprendre après pandémie corona attaquer pays celle-ci il est devenu nécessaire pour le gouvernement d'implémenter WEG pour protéger certaines nations et certaines chaînes opérations diverses organisations et business dans cet état pour produire business yo. Alors banque là décidé pour faire assistance à la côté c'est même là pas de bout en ligne pour c'est tellement longtemps encore et qu'a perdu autant de temps pour ça adresser nécessité yo. Président et aussi géré Saint Lucia Workers Credit Union féliciter initiative ça là qui a placé Mamio à dans une meilleure position pour recevoir un plus haut service et qui aussi est plus facile. Une espoir que service 4 ça là c'est qui a un grand bénéfice sans souhaiter une autre pandémie attaquer cette liste. Un membre Saint Lucia Workers Credit Union, M. Leslie Collymore, dit que technologie de service 4 ça là pour trouver l'argent entre your institution finance pour acheter marchandises et aussi pour commander diverses nécessités. Alors, le pays déjà en existence pour beaucoup d'autres temps, mais la banque celle-ci et Credit Union a une capacité pour embrasser et présenter service là pour Mamio. La banque celle-ci a plan aussi pour poursuivre plus de services en façon pour l'autre organisation et Mamio en temps pour venir. Ministre des Affaires agricoles à cette liste, honorable Ezekiel Joseph, qui a fait les cultivateurs et les femmes figues cette liste pour ne pas blâmer le gouvernement pour l'état en assistance bédation figure, particulièrement après le passage cyclone Elsa. Honorable ministre agricole explique que les affaires côté femmes figues doué en l'eau l'argent, c'est pas faute gouvernement. Le ministre agricole a déclaré que l'argent est en place qui 4 millions de dollars pour assister les stratégies en place pour assister les femmes à présent. Il est très appréciable que le gouvernement cette ici qu'a trouvé qu'a fait possible pour y trouver.
So I will dire that EPC pour Honorable Prime Minister et puis cabinet nous avons un loan of $4.2 million, but nous ne pouvons mettre un legal entity là avant banque là ça bail là ça because all NFT board là pas là encore. So le monde qui a parlé et puis parler about gouvernement pourquoi bail support. Raison pour bail support is because tant yo prend pour ba nous information, tant yo prend pour dire nous yo d'accord et puis ça consultant là fait il était pour over 4 mois. 4 mois. So moi voulais dire farmers nous à là nous avons try mettre en place legal entity ça c'est important et puis as soon as nous joindre legal entity à registrer nous allons continuer à restructure NFT et puis pour nous ça continuer à vendre. So notwithstanding this nous still need $500,000 là pour payer ces farmers là. Premier ministre là d'accord pour mettre l'argent là pour payer ces farmers là et puis ces farmers là quand payer si maintenant qu'à venir.
Ministre là qui a responsabilité pour égalité honorable Lénard Montout aussi très appréciable pour assistance du gouvernement kabay pour tout le monde qui perdit fait taille et qui aussi ni besoin l'autre assistance après passage cyclone Elsa.
Moi voulais remercier le Premier ministre là, moi voulais remercier les autres membres du cabinet là pour ça pour tirer l'argent ça là travaille tellement vite pour faire l'argent ça là avaler vite encore nous a fait avec moi KSP côté officiel qui travaille plus vite que possible pour faire assurer nous un petit soulagement pour faire assurer bagaille vie normal pour.
Premier ministre honorable Alain Chasney durant une conférence et puis les journalistes et aussi les autres ministres là qui en ont parlé là en finissement semaine passée a déclaré que pour ces 500 cailles qui sont fait dommage ensemble et puis chemin canal de pêche ex animaux en hauteur de $10 millions pour aider tout le monde qui trouvait affecté à cyclone ça là j'ai en place. Un grand effort j'ai commencé pour établir un coopératif pour les marchands de coco en cette ci avec les restants à ces pays Caraïbes là. Selon le chef pour l'organisation qui a opéré à l'avantage marchand de coco, Kenny Daniel, ça a fait pour aider ces marchands là avec Riverdez pour sortir en bas ces challenges là qui a continué pour menacer. Mais le ministère des Affaires agricoles a continué pour travailler à sur diverses façons pour développer l'industrie coco à cette ci entre l'année 2015 ou 2018. À peu près 5000 cultivateurs de coco qui vont s'ouvrir matériaux pour planter plus que 20 sources olives ces pays Caraïbes là. Aussi plus que 2000 farmers et aussi 400 chèques officiers extension trouver étrangement dans divers aspects, par exemple, management, production d'eau et protection de diverses vermines. Monsieur Daniel a déclaré que déjà, il a fait bon progrès pour établir le coopératif ça là. Côté, il a établi ces lois pour gouverner l'opération, ça c'est l'opération coopérative là, et aussi établir un registre. Daniel a déclaré que l'initiative ça là a continué à recevoir support les lions des pays Europe. Côté, il a placé 6 millions d'euros pour aider le développement de l'industrie coco à région Caraïbes là. En deuxième phase, projet ça là. Pour deuxième phase, projet ça là aussi, ces femmes ont recevoir support pour aussi éprouver capacité pour rester en compétition et aussi pour plus capable pour adresser le changement de climat, santé et affaires nourriture. Daniel a expliqué que le projet industrie coco ci a coopéré et puis l'autre agence à l'autre pays et qui tient discussion et puis ça c'est diversification qui est capable de cultiver coco à l'autre pays. Pendant cette-ci, il y a aussi établi une organisation qui a porté nous tout bagaille coco. Pour projet ça là, supposé continuer pour juste l'année 2023. Et c'est comme ça, nous avons trouvé une nouvelle là, monsieur, madame, je vous remercie autant pour regarder, je vous invitation. Pour je ne puis moi encore, c'est Dieu, conserver la vie. Nous avons posé l'autre nouvelle à Courrier. À présent, je vous posé tout, Janelle.
Merci Apple Primus. That brings us to the end of NTN Nightly. Join us next time at 7 p.m. with a repeat at 7 a.m. You can also catch up with us anytime on the St. Lucia Government Facebook page or YouTube channel. I am Janelle Norville.